So when we first started homesteading, we had a lot of big ideas, and honestly, we believed a few of these myths before we got started. So we're going to go over five of them. Basically, homesteading has become popular, and a lot of influencers share a very ideal version of country life that sometimes sets us up to compare and to dream a little too perfectly. So today we're tackling some of these myths we've encountered along our journey and share the truth from our own experiences. So whether you're just kind of starting out or you're curious about this lifestyle, we hope this conversation kind of helps set some realistic expectations and encourages you to create a homestead that's truly yours. So let's get started. Okay, myth number one: homesteading is always peaceful and easy. When we first got into homesteading, we definitely imagined those calm mornings, chickens quietly pecking around, sipping coffee while wandering through the garden. It all sounded pretty ideal, and honestly, that's how a lot of people present it online. So when you look around, it's easy to believe that homesteading is mostly calm and relaxing. That's probably why so many people, including us, were drawn to it in the first place. And it's not just because it looks pretty that we want to homestead. There's many aspects to it, but that ideal vision that you can put in your head definitely brings you to it. However, there are many aspects that are not ideal. So um, let's be real. We didn't expect it to be easy and all sunshine and rainbows. We have been around farms, but here's the thing we quickly kind of learned. Like, homesteading can be pretty chaotic at times. There's always something needing attention. The animals escaping, the fences here. Um, falling down due to winds, gardens getting overrun by weeds, surprise storms, messing up your plans, so many things, right? Chickens and animals needing your help. And it's a lifestyle that's really it's satisfying, but it's rarely easy. And honestly, some days you're just exhausted. But even though it's not always peaceful, there's always something incredibly rewarding about putting in that work and seeing real results at the end of the day. So just don't expect it to always feel like those perfect, peaceful images and videos that you see online. There's chaos in happening in the back. Myth number two: you need lots of land to start homesteading. So, when we first started talking about homesteading, we assumed we needed a huge piece of property, like a sprawling farm, plenty of land for animals, and endless space for growing veggies. We had so many ideas, right? It seemed like you couldn't even call yourself a homesteader without acres and acres of land. Otherwise, you'd be like a hobby farm. But honestly, that assumption kind of held us back a bit because the thought of saving up and buying all that land felt pretty overwhelming. We knew we needed like at least 5 acres for what our family needed to grow. So, what we needed and the prices near the city were very high. However, we did find that the further out you move, the better the prices go, and that's how we ended up with our homestead at the time. But it does mean a change in lifestyle as well. So as you leave the city, you need to, take on that rural life, and it's not always for everybody if you haven't experienced it before. Um, so anyway, there are many ways to homestead small. You don't need tons and tons of acres. You can get a lot done with just your backyard. But we've since learned that is that homesteading basically really starts with your skills and your mindset. So, not just with your land. You can start right now, exactly where you live. Even in our current situation, renting in a small place, we don't have chickens, we've got limited gardening kind of space and stuff. We're still homesteading. We're cooking real food. We're learning recipes and older ways of cooking and storing things. We're sourcing local, produce and meats, preserving foods, and building skills, so that when we can heave ho onto something, we have those extra skills to put towards it. Sure, land is great to have, and it's still part of our bigger dream. We are finding that land here in the UK is a little scarce and hard to come by, or very expensive, no matter where you go, unless you go really far north. But you obviously don't need tons of it to get started. It's about doing what you can with what you have right now, and you can start today. Um, Myth number three, all right, is that did not go. Myth number three, okay? Your goal should be to live off grid. I think almost everyone who starts exploring homestead basically eventually stumbles into the whole off grid conversation, living completely disconnected from modern infrastructure. That's the goal, right? Producing your own power, catching rainwater, the whole deal. We definitely had a phase where we thought going off grid was the ultimate homestead achievement. Sounded like a good idea. It makes sense. Be independent, keep everything built and created here. Um, but, a lot of people also make it seem like it's the only authentic way to homestead. You have your solar, you have your water catchment, you have, you know, living off in the woods somewhere far away from people. Um, but, in reality, living completely off grid just isn't practical or even desirable for everyone. It's not that straightforward. It's a big commitment and requires significant lifestyle adjustments. There's nothing wrong with embracing some modern conveniences or just going partially off grid and adding to it as you get more and more comfortable. There's no goal that says you have to do these things. Um, for us, homesteading is about kind of creating a sustainable and fulfilling lifestyle, one that works realistically with how we want to live. You don't have to go off grid to make meaningful steps towards self reliance or and helping your community. Um, it's just about getting a bit more sustainable and reconnecting with nature. So many of these is like, we have so much solar farms now, and it's just a waste of land. It's a ton of solar on grass that could be housing animals or food, and it takes up way too much room. Creating the solar panels and these wind turbines are not eco-friendly at all. Sure, down the road they pay for themselves kind of, but at this point in time, it just doesn't. We can have our greenhouses and stuff, but again, that's things we got to put in to build in. And earthships, I love earthships. I think they're fantastic. But again, nobody tells you, they tell you to build these things and live in them, but nobody tells you can take 3 to 5 years for those earthships to be fully ready to go. It can take that long for the adjustments in temperature to really settle and for them to work efficiently. So keep that in mind. And rainwater catchments, those work really well, but there's so many things that can go wrong. If you're not storing them correctly, you get algae in your water. If it's not covered correctly, you got wildlife in your water, which then can contaminate it. Bits and bobs can fall onto it if you're not catching it with the right equipment. You're putting things into your water that you don't need. I'm not saying tap water is any better, but you need to be aware of how you're collecting your water. Just collecting rainwater isn't going to keep you alive, right? So make sure it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Myth number four is homesteading immediately saves you tons of money. So one of the most common assumptions people make when looking into homesteading is that it's an instant way to slash grocery bills and save tons of money. On the surface, it makes sense. You're growing your own food, raising animals, and doing things yourself instead of, buying them from the store. So it seems logical to kind of think you'll immediately notice huge financial savings. It's definitely something many new homesteaders believe, and you often um, hear it as a key reason people kind of get started. Oh, it'll save us money. Um, but, the reality is it costs a lot to start. There's a lot of significant upfront costs. You've got seeds, gardening tools, soil amendments, fencing, livestock, feed. The list goes on, and as well as all the things that keep breaking down that you need to fix. There's those surprise expenses that pop up along the way. Over time, yes, you absolutely do start seeing the savings, especially as you get better at managing resources. But initially, the investment can be bigger than you think. Homesteading is more about the long term payoffs, healthier food, quality of life, and sustainability rather than immediate savings at the checkout. We found that um, really when it came to savings, all the input that we put into our animals and getting their fences and everything set up, it cost us the same as going to the grocery store, but we had much healthier food. We knew where it came from. We knew how it died. We know how it got on our plate. We knew everything about it. And that to us is worth the money, no question. So easy. um, Myth number 5, vegan homesteading is better for the planet than animal-based farming. So this one's a bit more personal. You've probably heard the idea that, the most eco-friendly way to farm or homestead is to cut out animals entirely. It's a pretty popular narrative these days, that plant-based farming is always kinder to the environment, uses fewer resources, and has a lower environmental impact overall. And honestly, on the surface, it seems like it makes sense, right? Less livestock, less harm. That's the logical way. And when we got our homestead, that was also our goal. We were vegan at the time, um, and I had big goals of building all these, growing all the veggies, doing the market garden, doing all that kind of stuff. And then finding out that all the food I like to eat as a vegan would need a lot of land to create, and also I can't grow a lot of it where I am. Anyway, nature's cycle includes animals. You can't have nature without animals. So when comparing comparing land use, why is that so hard to say? Land use. Many people assume vegan homesteads need far less land than animals inclusive farms, and that's usually the theory. Go vegan, less land, more land for trees. But in reality, a carefully managed regenerative system with animals like chickens, pigs, sheep, and cows all grazing together requires only slightly more acreage. So, if you're a family of 4, the animal and vegetation, you're having a market garden, you're having all your animals, you got a dairy cow, chickens, all the things, you're going to need around 4 to 5 acres for a family of 4 compared to the fully plant-based homestead, which is around 3 to 4 acres. Um, so again, depends what you eat, what you can grow. But in animal inclusive systems, garden waste becomes animal feed, and animals naturally fertilize and feed the land as they're grazing over it and pooping on it and creating a productive closed loop system, right? Everything is in harmony with itself. Whereas on a vegan homestead, garden waste can go into compost for sure and then go into the garden. But it doesn't replenish the soil nutrients as effectively as animal manure. And additional kind of external inputs are always often going to be needed. So while vegan agriculture might seem simpler at first glance, regenerative homesteading with animals typically provide a more balanced, self sustaining, and environmentally effective model in the long term. So, yeah. So, yeah, these are basically the 5 of the biggest homesteading myths we've kind of encountered and the truths we've learned along the way. So, remember, homesteading isn't about chasing perfection or following trends. It's about creating a lifestyle that works authentically for you and your family. I'd love to hear about any other myths you've come across or questions you might have. Leave those in the comments below. And if you're ready to start your own homestead journey, don't forget to subscribe, and follow along. We have lots of tips that we're going to be sharing out. And I wish you the best of luck. And if you have any questions, yeah, do let us know. So thanks so much for joining us today. I'll see you in the next video. Okay, bye.